Community Radio.
Let's be honest, wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Well, good afternoon, Johnson County. I'm going to let the Benny Goodman Orchestra finish up here. We'll get the show on track here for today. Good afternoon, Johnson County. Welcome to this Thursday's episode of Let Freedom Ring. I'm your host, Jake Wernette. We want to thank, first of all, our Creator, Almighty God, for this beautiful day, this cooler weather we've had. We know this time of year in Texas, it goes up and down. Texas is a little bit bipolar, but that's all right. We put up with her. Today's topic is going to be current events. We've got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff has been happening in the media lately. A lot of stuff has not been said over the waves very much. I feel like this is something that it's my duty as an American citizen, especially my duty as somebody who is part of the media, who is part of the press of this county. It is my duty to bring awareness to certain issues, to verbose, not necessarily, uh, or not only my own opinion, but what is morally the obligation of us as American citizens to stand up for. It's our duty foremost to be the primary defense of this country. A lot of people think it is the armed forces, but it is really a vigilant citizen who is the first line of defense against tyranny, a well informed citizen being necessary to preventing the tyrannical advancement of an order of government that I don't think we really want in this country. So I've got a few articles here. I got one from the Kansas City Star that didn't really print all the way. I'm going to kind of tie that into here. But it was essentially, and I don't think they wanted me to print this because this is what came out. Senator Josh Hawley says the FBI is anti-Catholic. That's all it says on here. So I'm going to pull up the rest of it on the cell phone here. Another one, Tapper mocks Comer for claim about Hunter Biden indictment from the Hill. We're going to be going over the Hunter Biden indictment. He's being held in contempt of Congress here, which if you ask me, it's a little bit too little too late. The House formally opened impeachment inquiries on President Joe Biden over corruption allegations. That's another thing that happened over this week. 8 Granbury students, this happened just yesterday, hospitalized after eating candy distributed by student. And a special little article that's going to be discussed next week between Greg Cooper and I. Greg Cooper and I are trying to get something together. For those who don't know, he does the political scene with Granbury. It's called The Breakdown with Greg Cooper. I highly recommend his show. He and I are trying to set something up, a joint front to bring out this article next week together. Saying that he and I are both very much inclined to local politics. We thought it would be best for both of us to share it together and kind of put our input. Another one from the Associated Press. Senate passes defense policy bill with 5.2% pay raise for troops, the biggest boost in decades. Now, most of this show is going to be, if you haven't seen before, essentially me reading out an article. I didn't really have a lot of time. I didn't really prepare a lot before the show, but that's what we have the most fun with, are shows where I get to put my 2 cents in and kind of rat out the American establishment and tell the average American what my 2 cents are. So we're going to start off with a little something local here. 8 Granbury students. This is from a WFAA article that came out here. Hospitalized after eating candy distributed by student, officials say. Granbury ISD and Granbury police say the students are okay and they are investigating the incident. I've put out a few things in a few groups that I'm a part of to get the parents of these children on, maybe a district official here sometime within the next week or two, to discuss what the incident happened. We have an issue in this country where our youth, and I'm just going to turn here and face you guys a little bit better. We have an issue in this country with our youth getting addicted to drugs. We have an issue with our youth distributing drugs that they given might not even know that are drugs. We have to understand the psychology of the duality of man here. Kids are going to listen to an adult figure whether they're a bad person or not. Just like people in this country are going to listen to figureheads and tyrannical figures whether they are a good person or not. If you have a problem with, and I just want to put this out here as a devil's advocate, this is what I'm going to talk to the parents about. Hopefully, if I can get a hold of some of the parents of these 8 kids, a lot of kids are going to hand out candy if somebody tells them to. I'm a drug dealer. I tell a kid to give candy to his classmates. Say, hey, if you buy enough of these, hand them out to your classmates, or I just give them to them because I want to see death, because these drug dealers have no remorse. That's what the kid's going to do. So playing devil's advocate here, a child is going to listen to anybody that they sense is a figure of authority. That can mean seniority in terms of age, seniority in terms of anything. I'm a new person who works at a supermarket. Who am I going to listen to if my manager's not around? The guy that's been there and has the number 5 years on his name tag. That's who I'm going to listen to. And you'll have the young people like me that get trained up in a job, and the guy that's been there 5 years might say, "You can get away with this when the manager's not looking. I've been doing it for 5 years. Sneak a candy bar in your back pocket. Here's where the cameras are. Here's what happens." You better believe people are going to take advantage of a system of authority where they can shirk the principal a little bit. So we discussed the student handing out candy. We don't know whether it's the guy's fault or not, but let's have a bit of lenience for the kid either way right now because the full story is not developed. So Granbury ISD and Granbury police say they're investigating after 8 Granbury Middle School students were hospitalized after eating candy distributed by a student that they initially believed to contain a narcotic. The students, they say, are okay. An initial test of the candy tested negative for THC, but additional testing will follow as the investigation into the incident continues. The district and police say we are taking every step necessary to ensure the safety of our students and prevent any future occurrences. I'm going to skip down here a little bit. If you want to read the full article, it came from WFAA just yesterday, so you'll probably have no trouble finding it. 2 of the 8th grade students who ate the candy shared their experiences after being taken to the emergency room. Hannah and Victoria, both 13, are at home now. It tasted like toothpaste, was really disgusting, gross, looked like Twizzlers. After eating the candy, they went to separate classes, but they, along with 6 other students, started feeling sick. That's when they decided to ask the teacher if they could go to the nurse. Victoria goes on to say after her interview, "I did pass out. I'm not sure how many kids passed out. Some felt really dizzy. Some felt like their heart was going really fast. They felt really sick." When Hannah's mother got the phone call about what happened at her daughter's school, she not only learned her daughter was sick, but also unresponsive. That scared her the most. I'm not a parent yet, but I'm feeling the tenseness of this article here. It was a very scary moment. I thought I was going to lose my child, Kimberly told WFAA. I want to get to the bottom of this for the other kids out there and the other parents. She goes on to say the doctor was very sure it was fentanyl. Following the incident, the school district and police reiterated the importance of reporting any suspicious or concerning behavior to a trusted adult, whether it be a teacher, a school staff member, or yourself. Rest assured, we are committed to maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for your child. We will continue to work closely with the authorities, review our existing protocols, and implement any necessary additional measures to prevent such incidents from happening in the future, the district statement said. The district asked those with questions or concerns to reach out to the school administration. Here's my 2 cents. Now, this is where the fun comes in. I get to put my input into this. There are 2 sources of blame here. Now, contrary to many people my age, I put the blame squarely at the face of social culture, and as well as the parents in the district. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not saying that, people are intentionally trying to get their kids hopped up on dope or whatever have you. Our society, our youth, the first step for parents to combat this, and I'm not a parent, I have to put that out there, is to tell our kids we don't live in the same world that we used to. Parents have a very hard time dealing with the fentanyl overdoses of our kids. They have a very tough reality to face that stuff is not the way that it was when they were young. Stuff isn't the same as when I was a child in school. When I was in school, you could bring nuts, you could bring juice, you could bring whatever to school and eat it in the classroom. For uh, the last 20 years of my life, I've had to struggle with the fact that we can't have school parties anymore where people bring cupcakes and cookies to class. Now, what's leading to the rise of allergens and all that is not of a precedent debate on this airing today. But we have to realize that our youth face a danger greater than just fentanyl. It is the normalization in society of drugs, of gang activity, of death, and of decay of societal values. In this country where we are so adamant about getting rid of God, about getting rid of every facet of our American society, what we neglect to realize is that that has a vacuum effect. Now, many people will say, well, we can just replace religious values, we can replace awareness with social systems. Do you really want the state governing your kids when the state hasn't even trained your kids in a public school on how to not take suspicious candy from a classmate? Or telling kids you probably shouldn't take candy in a package that looks suspicious, oddly marked, doesn't look like it, literally says edibles on it. The question here, and what many people have told me, was they are skeptical of whether this is fentanyl or not. So either we have a case of a brand new type of fentanyl coming out, or what we're seeing is a drug that has not been able to be readily tested by medical professionals yet. Drug dealers have no sense of empathy for human life. And that is part of a greater societal decline, whether you want to quote that to the decline of the West or the fall of the American empire, if you will. What it's attributed to is a populace who is no longer susceptible to the fact that we value human life. Where this comes into play in social media, what we're seeing now is the normalization of abortion on TikTok, the normalization of the rap culture, that for 90s rappers looking to the present, if they have not overdosed themselves, are going to see a culture that is completely antagonistic to what society has long held as the virtues of life. We have a society that the real pandemic is not COVID-19. It's not drug use. It's not overdosing. The true pandemic in this country today, and if I would argue it's an epidemic because it's spreading all across the world here. What we're seeing is people do not value life enough to train their kids to be watchful of what's going on. A one that is such devoid of humanistic values that we used to cherish and treasure in this country. Districts are now more concerned about whether they can chop the wee-wee off of an 11-year-old rather than reporting suspicious activity and getting down to the bottom of what should have been prevented to begin with. What we see in this country is the collusion between the school districts and the propaganda machine in this country. They are more concerned with telling your kids you can be anything you want to be, you can be any gender you want to be, instead of telling them listening to your parents is better than listening to anybody in authority. I believe it was Aristotle once said we should leave no authority unquestioned. The Grecian society, the Roman society, collapsed for two reasons. They had no sexual morality, and they had no religious backdrop. You look at the Roman Empire. The last gentleman, I believe it was Nero, was the last emperor of the Roman Empire. After several hundred years of instituting Christianity behind the government of the Roman Empire, behind the military of the Roman Empire, behind the civilization of the Roman Empire, behind the education, the farming of the Roman Empire, society under the Roman Empire, when Christianity was introduced, flourished. Why? Because a society that has values will always progress to be better than it was, because it has a calling, a greater societal betterment than simply sitting back and letting the welfare state take care of you. Christianity and capitalism. Many people will say religion is the opium of the masses when they are Marxists. You will hear this. They group Christianity and capitalism together. Why? Because not because it's the same system or because it was Christians that created capitalism. These systems both contribute to human betterment. Capitalism calls for entrepreneurship, introducing business, introducing a code of ethics, a code of betterment for society. That's why capitalism has hailed the greatest industrial, pharmaceutical, scientific advancements in the history of mankind. Is not because it is Christian, is because Christianity and capitalism both have values that call for businessmen and Christians alike to become better in the system in which they are a part of. Capitalism and Marxism, socialism and communism are very different systems. What we see today is a Marxist communist state arising in this country where the lives of our children, the lives of our elders no longer matter. We see euthanasia on the rise. First, we train our kids that being in a gang is okay. When a gang pops a cap it's okay. When you shoot it's okay. When you have sex with a prostitute, it's okay. When you're completely devoid of morals and walking around in the street as a soulless automaton to be used by the gang, to be used by the corporation, it's okay. Hollywood has prospered off of the mechanization, the normalization of devoid values in our children. If your child desires to grow up to be like Lil Wayne or whoever, not that I'm calling any of these people intentionally evil, a lot of them sell their souls for this godless system, for fame and fortune, as they are promised, and they're taken advantage of. But if your child tells you, I want to grow up to be like the Crips, instead of I want to be like Christ the Lord, I want to better myself and spread the gospel like Peter, or if your child is telling you he would rather spend all of his money, go sleep around with women. If your child is sleeping around more than he's opening his Bible, there is a societal problem and it begins at home. What we as Christians, what we as human beings in this country don't realize, whether you're Christian or not, you've noticed the problem. So my point here is not to convert people forcibly. My point is to open the eyes of the masses here and say, you have been dumbed, you have been dulled, you have been taken from your vigilant duty as a sentry on the post of American values. You have been removed from the tower of telling who and who not can come into the drawbridge. And by doing so, we have placed the state, we have placed our schools, who, if anybody has seen the laws in California now that criminally prosecute educators and other folks for not converting children to the sex or gender that they want to be. We have a problem, and it starts at home. Our children need to be taught that the world is a dangerous place, but that does not mean the world is not a good place. Christians have the timeless phrase, we're in the world, but not of it. It's time again that we trained our children to say, you might be in the world, but that doesn't mean that you have to do what the world tells you to. And I want to have a moment here for our young men and women that are listening. Boys and girls, do not conform to the ways of the world, whether you're Christian or not. Seek out religious values. Seek out the values that make you a human. What separates us from the beasts? What makes you different from your cat at home is that you have a moral compass. To some, that's the Holy Spirit. To some, that's Immanuel Kant. To some, that's another philosopher. Seek out virtues and values that make you different from every beast that crawls and swims across the face of the earth. We as Americans, we as citizens of this country have for too long let our guard down, and we let our kids worship the state. We let people walk around in masks. We let people get vaccinated, not because it's the betterment of society, but because they are told that that is how it's going to be, or they don't get to live in a normal society. Well, I'll tell you what's normal. It's not cutting off kids' appendages. It's not cutting off the breasts of a young woman. It's not telling kids that they can be whatever they want. Being in a normal society is kids having a mother and a father in a home that they are raised with good values, that they are raised to not conform to the ways of the world, but to better creation and to better the sense that they have that they are supposed to be better than they were years before. So before we get on that one for too long, there is another article here that I want to get into. And that is the FBI, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, all these yahoos that are getting brought in. Some say it's too little, too late. I would be one of those. Now, I'm also the person that says I've had enough of Congress constantly indicting, impeaching, and investigating people. It happened with the last president. What goes around comes around is one of the phrases some would say. An eye for an eye. If Trump gets impeached for everything that he did wrong, then Joe Biden should get impeached for everything that we know that he did and everything that we think he did. I would say the issue here is not our politicians, it's the American people have not learned to put people that they can trust into office. Now, this might be a catch 22 here. I might be nailing my own foot. I might be nailing the coffin closed on this program by going after the American people instead of the politicians. I, as an American citizen, it was very hard for me to realize as a two-time voter. Now, it's better to learn that you're in an abusive relationship than to keep it under the guise of he loves me, she loves me. We have a very, very abusive relationship with our government. And it's about time, if one person is not going to stop abusing the American public, then it's time the American public divorce the system that they are in. And I don't mean armed revolt. I mean, it's time that we got somebody new. The problem with these politicians is they think they can get away with everything because we keep putting them back in for 47 years. For 50 years, these people screw us over, and yet they keep getting elected. For 50 years, these people can be murderous, robbers. They can thieve the American people. They can steal your private property with eminent domain. They can take you to the bank if you haven't paid back your loan and take every single facet of your life. They can take you to a system where your kid's mom might be a druggie and you're fighting for a settlement from that, and you're fighting to get your kids in a good home where you can get remarried and finally raise them with good values away from somebody who is teaching them that drugs is okay, and they will side with the mother instead of somebody trying to do good, because we have to be diverse. We have to be okay with letting certain groups, certain genders, certain races to get ahead. If this country were truly equal, the American people would expect the same result from their politicians that a law-abiding citizen would expect from themselves and from their common man. Now, what we're seeing here is the politicians getting ahead faster than the American people. People like Joe Biden, people like Hunter Biden always get ahead. Why is that? Because they are devoid of the system that put them in. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, all of them agreed on the statement, you get the government you deserve, a republic if you can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin put it. What we see today is a system devoid of values, one that takes advantage of the American people, one that murders. Why? Is because there are two parallels here. The people get the government that they elect, and the government becomes the government of the citizens it serves. If a government serves a murderous, ravenous people who are devoid of the value of life, life at conception, life should be valued eternally. Our elders are a natural resource that is greater than anything on the face of the earth. When we allow euthanasia of our elderly because they are no longer socially valuable, as textbooks from my own college have been putting out and saying for the last 10 years, it's there. I'll bring it. I've got photos of the online material saying, who do you think is socially useless and valueless? Well, that's what communism believes. I read a book at the bookstore firsthand. It said Marxism is based off of who is socially valuable. Who is socially valuable to the revolution? If we are drawing the line in the sand at who is valuable and who is not, at who is valuable to the government, who can serve the state longer, who can serve the state the healthiest, we are completely lost as a society. Life is not about who is valuable and who is not. Life is about honoring every facet of God's creation, because that is what we are called to do. We are called to be better. We are called to value life. We are called to value bettering ourselves. And when we have, like the Associated Press article here, the 5.2 pay raise for our troops looks good on paper, but I bet you don't remember the secret spying software that they were trying to re-implement in the spending bill. Because if the Republicans don't vote for pay raising the troops, then they look bad. I guarantee you that's what every American here is thinking. If my representative doesn't vote for this bill, then he must suck. Well, your representative might have wanted to vote against that bill because there is a secret spy program that they were wanting to continue for the White House in that bill that just got passed. It passed. Maybe your senator saw that and said, I'm conflicted. If I vote against this, then I look like I hate our troops. But if I vote for it, then the American people continue to get spied on illegally without a warrant. And the Five Eyes program that the CIA and all these guys have set up, they can beam all those phone lines that they're hacking over to Great Britain. All Great Britain has to say is, hey, United States, we found these phone calls we might think you need to take a look at. Well, guess what? That's how they get around the Constitution and the warrant. It's a third-party loophole. And your Congress just voted to keep it in. So stick with us. We'll be discussing the rest of these articles and some more stuff that grinds my gears in the next segment. God bless you. Thank you for listening as always. And I really appreciate your views and your listening, because without us, this republic is kept in the dark.
Hey, travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Good afternoon, Johnson County. Welcome back to Let Freedom Ring. This pretty heated episode. I'm kind of warm in here myself. Before we get back to the segment, I'd like to say Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneIn Joco is the best place to find all the ways to listen and watch. The station app, which I highly recommend if you haven't downloaded it. That and Spreaker are two of the softwares that you can use, are also free on both Android and Apple devices. Check out our lineup and more at jococommunityradio.com. This episode more are brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your local Texas sales rep at 844-839-4245. That's 844-839-4245. Be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. I want to give a shout out to our listeners in Michigan and Arkansas. I heard our audiences there are growing as well. I want to give a shout out to everybody in Texas listening outside of the Johnson County area. Your viewership and listening is critical in these times of trial and tribulation for our wonderful republic. Now, I want to show something as well on the screen here, so I'm going to try and pull it up. Not many people might believe this, but we have a greater problem than simply what is going on in our government. We ask why we have a government that constantly abuses the American people, gets ahead. Joe Biden's impeachment inquiry has finally opened up after oh God, what a failed 2 years of Kevin McCarthy and Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, I guarantee you the trade off here, all of a sudden, Mike Johnson opens up the impeachment inquiry where he has been keeping the floor of it closed for the last few months. Comes right after. Let's see the date here. December 14th is when the House opened the impeachment inquiry. December 13th was when the illegal spy program got reinstated into the 860 something billion dollar defense budget. You figure out whether that's a trade off or a coincidence or not. Another thing here was the Hunter Biden indictment has been opened up. Too little, too late. Some will say I don't really care. But here's the problem: is your politicians are constantly making a trade off between your interests and theirs. Now, it would be really easy for me as the most powerful person in the country, the Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader, to come out and say, well, unless you want to be taken off this committee, then you're going to kind of vote for the illegal spy program. Your citizens aren't going to read a 1,000-page budget report. Your citizens aren't going to read this. So trust me, you have no worries about what your constituents are going to think. You don't have to worry about getting voted out the next session. You don't have to worry about getting taken out of office the next election. We'll make sure you get your funds. We'll make sure you get your budget. We're part of the party establishment. We're here for you. We don't want you to feel like you're alone in this. We're fighting. We're desperately fighting for you as well. That's what goes on in Washington. The Republicans and the Democrats who have sold themselves and their country out for a pay raise, for spying on the American people, for not trusting us. Trust is a two-way street. If you can't trust your significant other to not cheat on you, or you don't trust them that they have your interests in mind, then they're probably not going to trust that you love them. It's kind of the situation that we're in as American citizens right now. We're in an abusive relationship, and it's time one of us put a stop to it. It's not going to be the people that are constantly beating the wife, beating the husband. It's going to be the person that stands up and says, I want a divorce. I'm tired of this. I'm going to live with my mother for a little bit. I'm not saying Americans should go back and live with the monarch of England, but it's time we took a trip down to our mother's house and thought things through about the way things are going. So your mother's house can be the voting poll. Your mother's house can be, oh goodness, let's take a look through here. What are the avenues? Political involvement, getting involved. I'm running for the Precinct 39 chairman of the Republican Party here in Johnson County in Burleson, which many of you know that I put my country and I put the interests of my people and my government over the interests of a party. And I hope that everybody out there, Republican or Democrat, is listening, honors that commitment that I am making. I am not running for this position because I'm a diehard Republican who wants to get only Republican candidates or this or that. I want to do it because it's my ticket to give back to the nation that has given me so much. Republicans and Democrats used to hold faith in the Republic above faith in Roosevelt or faith in Eisenhower. As much as I like the guy, he still screwed up in some facets, not getting on board with desegregation as early as he could have, not not reading the full report that the CIA was willing to give out for people that were willing to screw him over so easily, to get somebody in Dole Fruits, the United Fruit Company, some more profit. I'm going to share something real quick, and I hope everybody is out there listening. I'm going to try my best here. But if we all go to look at who we think the enemy of the people is, many will agree that it's the globalists, the people that have been selling out this country to China, to our allies that don't pay their fair share. Many of you will say it's our corrupt politicians who are part of a global cabal of leaders who are not necessarily the best in mind. Now, I have been staying up to date with the Argentinian election. The gentleman Javier Milei, who had just got inaugurated down there, gave a very pressing, dangerous speech about getting rid of the central bank, about cutting out half of the federal jobs there, getting rid of half of the federal departments there. Many hail him as a hero. We say we wish we had a Javier Milei here in the United States. And the truth is it's very hard for us to tell who is still establishment and who is not. It's very hard for us to not vote in this country, just like everybody else in the world, for somebody who is speaking so passionately for something and still is part of the global order that is selling us out. And I'm not saying there's a big new world order plan. I'm not saying any of this. There is a plan to put chips in your arm and your head, just like Revelation says, but that is a conspiracy that can wait for another day. We reread the G20 report where they were thinking about doing that to you guys. The goyim, the cattle here, is what the globalists want. Now, getting rid of the central bank implies that the government is going to have to create a new program to create monetary value in Argentina, whether that's going to be a chip in the hand in a small country in South America where they can track everybody easily and see if the program works before they come after 340 million Americans in the United States. I don't know. But all I can tell you is if you take a nice trip with me, and I'm going to see if this thing works here. Let's see if I can share it here. I think this is what we can do. The gentleman is also a member of the World Economic Forum that is what everybody is thinking is the establishment here at this point. They've been putting in junior members in the Canadian Parliament and stuff for 50 years now. They have probably been doing it in the United States. Well, let's see here. He's a member of all these things here. Now, I don't know if everybody saw that or not. I'm hoping that it went through, but if you go to wef.org and look through their membership, you'll find Javier on there. Another individual that we like to tout as such a great person, and I don't know that this is a road that I want to go down, but there's people in your state government that are members too. There are state members of the state of Texas that are members of WEF, the program that we discussed that wants to put chips in everybody's arm. They think COVID adds to the food crisis, and to do that, we have to maybe cut down a few things. The TED Talk with a certain tech entrepreneur and billionaire that was out a few years ago, it was talking about if we do a great job with reproductive health services and do a great job with new vaccines, perhaps we can lower the population by 10 or 15%. All those guys, just like Gavin Newsom, just like all these other guys, I don't have anything against the gentleman, the young guy that's running for President Vivek. I believe he's a really intelligent guy. I believe he is a very good orator. Whether he copied Barack Obama or not, he cuts out in the debates and ends up scoring the highest on presidential debate polls. From debate watchers like a few professors here in the area that have shared their research and their findings with me. But I do have a problem with him getting a Daisy and something Soros grant and fellowship. The same people that we say are buying out Democrats must obviously be buying out membership with the Republican Party. But we're not going to talk about that, because if you go after the Republican Party and say that they've got Soros members or they've got people that are WEF junior members, then can't threaten your own people. You can call them stupid. You can call them derogatory comments. You can go after them for voting for another Republican, but you can't criticize the candidates and the people in the party, because we can only do that with Democrats. We can only do that with Republicans. It's time Americans put their country first and started criticizing everybody equally. We were born out of a skepticism of government, were we not? We were born out of hating taxation without representation. And even though our nation is inherently against virtual representation, being represented in Parliament in England by the Parliament under George Grenville and other members of Parliament, without having our own colonial representative in Parliament. Sounds kind of fishy that we went to COVID and we all of a sudden had virtual representation. All of a sudden, all of our congressmen were on Zoom calls. Suddenly, they were all unavailable for us while we were busy watching the gentleman with a wife and two kids setting an example, stealing all of the toilet paper on aisle 10 instead of letting the rest of his country have some. While we were too busy criticizing Republicans for going after corruption in the federal government and saying we have to indict him, we have to get rid of him, we have to impeach him 2 or 3 times before the message gets across. We were turning a blind eye to the voters who were hogging water in the middle of a global health crisis when the little old lady who is deciding between her polydent and the gentleman spending $2 before inflation killed us on getting her 40 bottles of water. Or the people in the last ice storm that instead of considering the outcome of the 30-40 car pileup on I-35 decided that their job was more important than the life of their countrymen. You see, the problem is we put our collective attitudes in situations where the government tells us what is right and what is wrong instead of judging for ourselves whether slipping on a patch of black ice and having a semi pile through 40 people was worth getting on the road this morning, or going to the store and buying up everything so the old lady and the old man living on Social Security and a stagnant income can no longer afford things. That is the people that we have electing these monsters, these tyrants, these whatever you want to call them. Machiavelli would call them the prince, the gentleman who gets more respect by fear than he does by doing good for his constituents. That is the situation of our country. And now that I say this, go on WEF.org, look at the membership. You'll see all sorts of junior members in your state governments or your local governments that might be part of it. Look there. Look at some other non-governmental organizations. Look at this. All these societies that have junior members that have infiltrated global parliaments, global things. Just like the European Union, they had the medical team of them convene here about 2 years back and ask Pfizer why they didn't go through clinical trials in Europe. And the gentleman, I believe he was either from Hungary or he was from another Central European country, asking all of the right questions. All of a sudden, the board votes that it's unanimously almost by almost 1 to 2 votes opposing it, that didn't need to proceed with trials or anything like that. We have a world. I will tell you, the New World Order, all of these things, whatever you want to call it, the global cabal, the NWO, tyrants, global elites, oligarchies, kleptocracies, monarchies, the how this is all going to evolve is not out of a global system. It might look like geniuses. We might say these elites have set it up so well that we just can't get another regular American in office. Well, you know how that happened was because the American people dropped their guard to begin with and allowed this to happen. We have nobody to blame but ourselves. We were the ones who decided that going out to Kmart and going out to Amazon.com for all of our presents was more important than going down to the mom and pop shop. And that's why mom and pop are dead and no longer in business. That's why companies of 6 generations are now going under, is because we suddenly decided that convenience was better than community. That, what other 2 letters can I put together? That progress was more important than prosperity. Truly living the American dream instead of living paycheck to paycheck. We decided that having our leaders do everything for us was more important than inspiring our children to grow up with the spirit of 76. That spirit that died off so long ago in this country has not been revived utterly since it collapsed. Was founded by men who were aware, by women who were sewing the flags of freedom that were carried into battle. Our country was run by ladies and gentlemen who were the product of their time. Slavery might not have gotten rid of then, but the people who own the plantations are now the ones that are running the welfare checks that keep the minorities down. The plantation has not changed. The calling for us to stand up to slavery, to the government, to sex slaves, standing up to tyrants, standing up to questioning your government, standing up and saying, if the government can print its money, why do I have to pay so many taxes every year? It's time that we brought up the old Norman Rockwell painting, the gentleman standing up. I'm going to pull it up here. I don't know if the first time you could see it or not, but there is a painting. I'm going to look it up here because I really like it. It's a painting by Norman Rockwell called Freedom of Speech. Now, I don't know if everybody has seen this. I don't even know that the young folks out there that are 40 and under might know who Norman Rockwell was. Made a lot of cups, made a lot of stuff. But let's take a look here because I believe it's important. This is the Norman Rockwell painting that I recall when I think of standing up for your country. It's called Norman Rockwell's Freedom of Speech 1975 painting. Norman Rockwell was a brilliant artist, a brilliant envisioner of what it means to be an American. Now, a lot of you out there might remember the Ainsley Adams, I think it is, all those landscape paintings that hung in McDonald's for years and years upon years. He doesn't hold a torch to Norman Rockwell. It's time we had people in a regular working class jacket standing up in a room of businessmen, a room of people in suits, and said, this is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to go down. And this is what we're not going to let you get away with anymore. Whatever happened to the spirit of let's stand up and question everybody. Let's stand up and question who is in our Republican Party, who is in our Democratic Party, who is in the Libertarian Party, who's in the Green Party, who are the communists, who are the people on your school board that are not overseeing policy, who are the people in your school board that are letting prostitutes get away with it, sleep their way into a lot of committees, who are the people on your city council, who are the people in your CAD board, your Central Appraisal District board, who are the people in your real estate, your TRILA, who are the people in your who comes up with the text, the T, who are the people on the Texas Education Agency? What interest do they have? Who are they bought by? Are questions that we don't ask anymore. Before you go to the polls, I want everybody, on top of your 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day of prayer that you take 5 minutes a day. And there's a lot of people that run for office in this state. Take 5 minutes one day to look into who's running for city council the next election. Take 5 minutes to look at each one a day. And I'll tell you where to go. Open Secrets is good for federal and state officials. If you're looking for who is financing them, it's an open source document that tells you everybody that's paid into the campaign. In the case of AOC, it was Microsoft, Amazon, all those big companies that we hold so near and dear to our hearts. They're truly the spirit of entrepreneurship. No, they're not. BS. I call BS on that because they're the spirit of corporatism and corporate pseudo-fascism that are taking advantage of the workers. They're taking advantage of the consumers, and they're outsourcing all of your jobs. They're taking away the cashiers in your Walmart. They're letting the robots mop the floors instead of hiring a janitor for minimum wage who makes probably nothing and is now on the street outside the half-price books here petting a dog or whatever. It really boils my blood because we have nobody to blame but ourselves for why things are going the way that they are. And my generation is sadly realizing this fact and are now standing up. You ask why the decline of republicanism or the decline of membership in the Democratic Party or why everybody's going to it is because the Democrats are taking advantage of the kids because they don't feel like they belong in any system anymore. So they're going to go to the one that feeds them the lies that they treasure. But I'll tell you what. You can call kids liberals. You can call them Gen Z is moving conservative. We had radical Republicans. We have radical Democrats. Everybody in this system is finding a place where they belong because nobody in this system belongs anymore. I might just go ahead and show you this. I don't know if everybody can see this, but you've got people that are, I don't know whether they're junior members or not. I might I might just go with it because this is probably not the worst thing I'm gonna talk about this week. But you have folks that are I'm not going to say anything. For those watching, you can see for yourself. We have people all over the country. We have people in our state governments. We have people in our local governments who are bought out by the opposition. They do a lot of good for this country, but as we know, with friction, it takes two forces in science to make heat. It takes the brakes on a car to stop the wheels from spinning on the road. It's not the road that slows down, it's the car. The same people that are driving that car could drive it really well or really poorly. There's that old stereotype that women drivers are worse than men or men are worse than women. If you've ever been in the car with a mom who is a good or a bad driver and a dad who's a good or a bad driver, regardless of how they drive, you're going to get the same outcome at the end. That decision is not made up by the children, but what we have not realized is that the American citizens criticizing the driver of the car are now a middle-aged 40-year-old adult who is sitting in the back seat who thinks that he has no say over the 80-year-olds in the front seat driving the car, but he really does. He has the choice to tell the driver, I'm not going any further. I want you to get out. I'm taking the wheel. Whether the 80-year-old mother or the 80-year-old father are good or bad drivers, we're getting to the same inevitable outcome, which there is now a Hollywood movie out about the inevitable civil war that this country is going to fight. I urge you not to take part. I urge you not to get along with predictive programming, just like they did with East Palestine and the movie that came out, White Noise, and the train that derailed at the same place, and the same people that were movie doubles in White Noise were also the same ones being locked in their house when the Norfolk Southern train derailed and they had chickens dying and people getting acid rain. When did this country stop criticizing the leaders of this country? Everything I've told you today is factual. Everything I've shown you today is real. You can go on there and look it up yourself. You can go on here and look at the articles. But the only source that we don't question anymore is ourselves. What information do we have? Well, we put the people into government. We decide who is Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House, many don't know, does not have to be a member of the House. That's why everybody was calling on Donald Trump to do it. What we have and what we don't have is decided by our choices. We can have an 80-year-old geriatric driving the bus. We can have an 80-year-old geriatric woman driving the bus. Either way, the diversity makes no exclusion to the inevitable outcome that will happen when the young man who does not step up does not take control of the wheel of the bus for the rest of his citizens, too scared to get up in the aisle and do it. Whether that be somebody of a different race, whether that be somebody who is an immigrant, whether that be a national-born citizen, it doesn't matter. We divide ourselves on too many things. We say, I can criticize the Democrats, but I won't criticize the Republicans. Another article that we're going to get to next week, one of my favorites that Greg and I are going to bring up together. We have a choice in this country. You can vote for somebody like Javier, who seems like a decent guy. Only his actions will decide who he really serves, the master of the state or the master in his people. That same choice that was extended by divine providence to Argentina is now in the hands of the American people. We do not have a financial collapse. We do not have a civil war coming. We have an orchestrated crisis coming to this country. We have an orchestrated crisis at the southern border. This didn't just happen overnight. It came from 2 or 3 years of poor policy of one man and a one-party system. The people that are crossing our border are not all good people. We have to face that fact, just like not everybody that's living in our neighborhood are good people. We have a choice to make in this country. And the fate of our republic, the survival of the American nation, the survival of our young people, the survival of justice, the survival of equal opportunity, the survival of equal justice without having an equal outcome. Because outcome is decided by choice, whether you're black, white, or anything. How you run your business, whether you get bailouts or not, depends on the choice of the CEO. We as the CEOs of our American Republic are now at a point where we decide whether we want to file capital bankruptcy, Title 42 or whatever that bankruptcy code is, whether we want to collapse or whether we want to keep this economy, this country going, because we are the greatest on the face of the earth and the greatest empire that's ever existed in history. And none of the free world exists without America. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And may the blood of Christ as always wash over our government. We desperately need it. Thank you.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.